Hello Exiles, my name is Chris Wildotter and welcome to the Legacy series, a place where we revisit every Path of Exile league and try to generate new ideas without any care for balance or implementation. Only fun is allowed. Today's league will be Blight. We asked many players about the general opinion of the Blight mechanic and we found out that there were basically two kinds of responses. Either they love it and want their maps as ravaged as their cardio, or they wanted erased from the face of the earth as their cardio. We thought at first this was the case of boomers coming from the TD custom maps in Warcraft 3 against mostly younger, more fresh human beings coming to the ARPG genre. But then we realized ARPG player base is as fresh as that carrot forever lost between the fridge drawers, which is then found looking like a 100-year-old witch finger. The solution we found to the splitted opinions was simple. If you don't like this mechanic, well, f*** you. But you should still watch this video as your superior league could be the next one to be spotted, and you might want to know what to expect. And that will be new items, new skills, new bosses, new mechanics and new microtransactions. Of course. Now, let's start.
Burning away our sins, cast your burning gaze to thine soul, and the unrighteous were turned to ash.
We thought this breath was contained. Rose driven mark from where we came. But the creatures affected by this parasite were active. There was no calm to be found in Great Lust. The storm gave us without warning. An explosion followed by a deafening scream. Spores of mycelium ran all over the coast. Something has awakened.
You must be cleansed! Ya-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da-da-dee, ya-da-da-da-da-dee.
In Blight Legacy, we are finally following the roots to unveil the original source of the Blight, the mycelium idol of Isgazil, previously known as the Idol of Communion. It was a powerful relic worshipped and passed through generations by the Icilian tribe. In their folklore, every newborn was thought to be cursed by the gods with the burden of free will, empty and devoid of their ancestors' wisdom. When they come to age, they perform the ritual of communal bond, where they willingly sacrifice their individuality to join the tribe's collective mind. Their past experiences, achievements and failures absorbed by the idol and thus by the Icilian people. We still don't know what happened to both the people of Yggdrasil and the idol itself. They didn't have written or carved language, as their knowledge was shared by the communal bond, making the reconstruction of history next to impossible. But what if the idol was never truly lost, only buried over the years, only to latch itself and its conscience to the only living thing it could? The hive must endure. Blight was probably one of the most innovative mechanics we have ever introduced in Path of Exile from other games genres, except maybe for the Conflict League showcase right here. Bringing the tower defense game mode to Rare Class opened new ways for the game to be played, and options are always well received. With that in mind, we have done massive changes to the core Blight mechanic in all tiers of content while not losing focus on what really matters in the end: building towers and killing monsters. Your first encounter with Cassia will be in early white maps, and one thing you may notice is the new interface. There are two new mechanics you must learn. First one, you can now use oils to roll different modifiers on the pump, allowing you to customize both the difficulty of the encounter as well as the potential rewards. You can roll 2 modifiers in a white map, 4 in yellow maps and up to 6 in red maps. Speaking of oils, they have received a major overhaul. There are still 16 different oils, but they are divided in 4 categories, separated by 4 tiers similar to Essence and Scarabs. The reason behind this change was that some of them just do the same thing but better, and that is just boring. Also, we didn't like the infinite 3-to-1 conversion from the worst oil up to the best one, as it took some of the drop's weight. Also, this will make more sense later, theme-wise. There are currently 4 different uses for oils, but we'll talk about it later once we explain other new mechanics. Speaking of which, this one is called Purifying. In order to purify the Blight, Cassia will use a map as a catalyst to absorb the spreading fungi from this zone. Doing so will alter said map to become, you guessed it, a Blighted map. Blighted maps can only be acquired now by this process or by killing bosses, more on that later. This means their acquisition will be more deterministic and consistent, but less farmable in bulk of random drops. It will also avoid any future featuring of shitty map layouts. Some maps will take more time to become blighted than others. Its progression is based on their tier and also the map in which you're running the mechanic. If you fail to protect the pump, don't worry. You won't lose the map, only the attempted progression. White maps can only spawn 1 blight encounter, which will have up to 4 roots spreading from their pump, and also the chance to drop oils from tier 1 and tier 2. Yellow maps can have 2 blight encounters, 6 roots, and can drop up to tier 3 oils. It can also spawn unique monsters from portals, which white maps cannot. And red maps, as you might expect, will be the bigger one with 3 blight encounters, 8 roots per pump, and a lot more unique monsters. Also, all oils are able to drop here. But red maps also contains a chance for one of the root portals to mutate with unstable mycelium. When this happens, a portal similar to the Abyssal Depths mechanic will spawn, and you will be able to encounter one of the 4 new unique bosses: the Thorn Scroller, the Vile Bloodsome, the Putrid Harvester, and the Contagious Ember Spore. Each of these bosses will have special unique drops related to them. 2 of those uniques were already introduced by the Blight League before and are no longer part of the global loot table. Others are being added to complete the set, such as the Vulcanized Iron Ring, which chills you and enemies when you are ignited, or the Nailing Opus Iron Ring, which chills you and enemies when you are impaled. These bosses also drop rare oils, currency, and special fragments. If you manage to gather all 4 fragments, you can use them in the map device to open a portal to the Root of Evil, where you may find the origins of the corrupting growth, the Blighted Heart, and maybe the forgotten idol of Isgazil. Now, before talking about Blighted and Ravaged maps, it's really important to talk about towers. They have been upgraded with new mechanics and options. First, you can now build towers by pressing the F key when standing next to a building spot. No more running trying to click it only to be one-shotted for stepping on a lane. After that, you will be prompted to select between 6 different options we are familiar with. Those are Fireball, Chilling, Shock Nova, Empowering, Seismic, and Summoning Tower. Here you can also use your keys to select between them, and yes, you can change keybinds in the main menu. Once you choose, for example, Fireball, it will upgrade to the T1 Fireball Tower. Now you can leave it like that, upgrade it to Tier 2, or use the newly added button to sell it for a percentage of the original price. You will be able to sell any tower at any point, no matter what type or tier. Upon reaching Tier 3, each type of tower will have 6 different variations, and the upgrade option will change to Overcharge. While in this state, it will work at 200% efficiency for 10 seconds and then deactivate for the next 10. This means you can still improve already maxed out towers with some opportunity cost. Now let's check all the new towers. Fireball now has 4 additional variations besides Flamethrower and Meteor Tower. It has Furnace Tower, which burns at high temperatures, dealing fire damage over time to all surrounding enemies. You can call it the Righteous Fire of Towers. Then we have Smoldering Towers that burn the flesh of nearby monsters applying Scorch. The Ignition Tower, as you can imagine, ignites enemy using fireballs. And finally, the Detonation Tower that, unlike the rest, doesn't target enemy units directly. Instead, it lays mines on the ground periodically, ready to be blown up when monsters get too close, dealing both physical and fire damage. Same was done with every other type of tower. Let's continue. Chilling towers also evolved into iceberg towers, which creates a pillar of ice that bursts from the ground, creating a chilling explosion. Sub-Zero towers, that has nothing to do with Boon, exhales cold air applying brittle to monster caught in it. Winter Tower creates extremely cold weather in a zone which deals cold damage over time and also chills and freezes enemies that stays too long inside it. And last but not least, Wind Tower, which pushes enemies back with a gust of wind. Let's go into the Dark Ziggurat now.
My life for Nazul.
Summoning towers evolve into bestiary towers, spawning minions that fight monsters from both air and ground, just not as efficient as their specialized counterparts. Acolyte towers fire projectiles that pierce all enemy it hits, dealing chaos damage. The Cobra Tower, however, doesn't like magic. Instead, it uses daggers that are thrown to monsters and can chain up to 3 times, applying poison on hit. And the last one is the Possession Tower. It possesses normal monsters for a few seconds before they are detonated in an explosion of physical damage based on their maximum life. You can call it living bombs. Now 3 more to go. Seismic Towers evolve into Avalanche Towers, which sends waves of stone towards enemy in a cone. Dust Tower spawns multiple moving tornadoes in a huge area that inflict bleeding to targets they collide with. And then there are the Earthquake Towers, which stuns enemy in an area while grouping them together at the epicenter. And finally, the Dome Towers, which are absolutely perfect to protect yourself from random projectiles hitting you from the off-screen, especially from unique bosses. These towers create a bubble around themselves that protects you and your minions from outside damage. Shock Nova, for some reason, is the only tower with 2 words instead of 1. Why? The 2-name tower can evolve into Electro Towers, which fire slow-moving balls of lightning. The Static Tower, which applies sap to nearby enemies. The Laser Tower, that unleashes a beam of lightning electrocuting all enemies it touches. And finally, the Tesla Tower, which fires 80% of all useless stuff. Or that was Twitter. Or X. Now, Tesla Towers releases Shock Novas periodically, dealing huge damage and applying max shock. And that's all for damaging towers. The last one is the Empowering Tower, which is the only one focused exclusively on buffing towers. Intensified Towers give nearby towers more range. Charged Towers sacrifice damage of nearby towers to boost their activation speed. Focused Towers work the other way around, decreasing the activation speed to boost damage. And the last one is the Overpowering Tower, which is the upgraded version of the Empowering Tower with a 100% increased effect, but it can only affect the closest tower. Now it's time to finally talk about... Welcome to the most satisfying clicking experience in Path of Exile, Blighted maps. You may think it's the building of towers that keep players coming back to this mechanic, but in reality, it's the hidden casino's dopamine. We talked before about the average age of ARPG players, and if we actually eliminate this pretty filter, we can actually see why we can't stop ourselves from coming back. But don't worry, if you love it, so do we, and that's the reason we are improving the map experience. First, we are reworking the route visuals to be more clear on the screen. This is not an issue when they are like maybe 4 or 6, but when they start to overlap and grow everywhere, it's a nightmare. Also, we are introducing a new mechanic called Tower Integration. If you pay close attention to the bottom of the screen, you will see this new interface. It seems we have one slot open right now, so what does it do? Well, we can pick up a tower and integrate it directly to us. It will keep firing and applying its buff exactly like it does when it's placed. However, we can only pick up one tower at a time, and it will be destroyed if we decide to drop it or pick another one. Picking up Dome Towers is a personal favorite of mine as a divine retribution after years of engaging with the most annoying interaction Path of Exile has to offer besides porcupines, and that is fucking proximity shields. We want the Blight encounters in maps to be the place where you learn the basics of tower placement, their evolutions, and monster resistances. Blighted maps instead should be the next step in the learning curve, where you learn all about managing those towers around to cover multiple areas, which monster has more resistance to what type of tower, and root pressure. Blighted maps only have one mechanic left to explain, which are the lucky invasions. This will happen randomly to give more flavor to each map. During these invasions, you will see in their interface below a star above the portal icons. Special monster will spawn and rush your pump. It's really fast and it can be slowed or stunned, but has a very small life pool. Kill it and you will receive some rewards, from improving your chest at the end of the map, to restoring some life to the pump, or even putting a protecting shield over it to save some durability for later. Blighted maps are the only place where, once it's done successfully, are able to drop Ravaged maps. Now, what about those maps? Well, Ravaged maps are supposed to be only for the experienced players, the users, as they will be extremely hard. They will run the same mechanics as regular Blighted maps and some more. First off, portals at the end of each route start only with a single resistance, but over time they will gain additional ones up to a maximum of 3. Not all routes will end up having 3 resistances though. Also, you can expect way more routes growing from the pump in Ravaged maps than Blighted ones. Furthermore, lucky invasions are still a thing, but if they manage to reach the pump in Ravaged maps, you will receive a penalty in the form of faster monsters, monsters deal more damage to the pump, monsters cannot be slowed below base value, and so on. You don't want to miss them. There is a unique mechanic exclusive to Ravaged maps I haven't talked about yet, and it's called Pump the Pump. Every few minutes, you can sacrifice 10% of your pump maximum durability by pumping it hard. It will duplicate chest at the end of a few routes, but said routes will gain in return maximum resistances to towers. That will be 3 at random. Based on the average time it takes to complete the map, I would say you can pump it 3 times, maybe 4 before the encounter ends. And that will be all for Ravaged maps. This will not be an easy mechanic, but if you manage, you can certainly expect loot raining all over the place and a few minutes to collect them all. We have mentioned that oils have 4 different purposes. Rolling modifiers on pumps is one of them, anointing jewelry, rings, and unique is another. We actually didn't touch the anointing mechanic as it works just fine. We just added new anoints for rings based on the also new towers. The third use for oils will be rolling Blighted and Ravaged maps, just like always. And the fourth and final use is a new mechanic called oiling the lamp. Yeah, we know how it sounds. I promise you it's nothing sexual like caring for the Cyclops or tickling my goose. Oh my god. We'll be using oil lamps. It's a new item that can be socketed in your inventory to be used anywhere in Path of Exile. The fumes emanating from the lamp will affect monsters surrounding you in different ways based on the oil mix that is burning inside. Similar to sextants, oils don't burn forever. They need to be refilled every now and then. You will lose around 10% per zone, so it will last you approximately 10 maps. Some of these effects are enemies killed don't leave corpses, you cannot take reflected damage from nearby monsters, gain X amount of mana on kill, and so on. The idea is to give you problem-solving options for mapping, but you may find more powerful uses later on when mixing the rarest of oils, such as gold and silver, together, creating 50% chance for items to drop corrupted, or 10% chance for monsters to duplicate divination card drops. You can always specialize further into any specific league mechanic through the Atlas passive tree. We are adding a couple more clusters for Blight on top of the old ones. This is a chest cluster, where you can increase the spawn rate of certain types of rewards, making all other options less frequent. Here we have 3 special nodes. One reduces the amount of roots spreading from the pump, but highly increases the spawn rate of monsters, which is a great way to do the mechanic faster, but sacrificing some rewards. This will eliminate the need to anoint everything using tail oils, which also means not using other oils instead. The other node does the opposite, making the spawn rate lower but allowing more routes to spawn. That will be easier with more rewards, but it will take more time. The third node is an utility one, which grants the pump the opportunity to avoid damage. It's a small chance, but it can save you from time to time. And finally, there are two major Atlas nodes that completely change the way you play Blight, similar to Cassia's Pride. One is called Master Mycologist, which makes both Blighted and Ravaged maps to have 300% more chests, but your pump will have 1 durability and no protection from lucky invasions. If you believe in yourself, there is a reward at the end of the road. And the other one is Demolition Man, where all your towers and monsters alike deal no damage to you or your minions. If your build has enough damage, you can still use control towers to help you out a little bit with crowd control. Also, makes Blight hardcore friendly with huge gains. New mechanics and bosses also come with new items. I only show you 2 of them, so let's see a few more. The Putrid Dress is a new lacquered garb armor that comes with a chance to poison on hit and increase poison duration. The most important mod, however, is the one that says enemy killed by poison explode, dealing the remaining poison damage as a nova of chaos damage. The downside is that poison cannot proliferate once you equip this item. The nova itself is a hit though, so maybe with enough chance to poison you can make your own fake proliferation. Also, it will help spread curses, and any rare monster next to a pack will be deleted from the server. Cordyceps Echoes is a primordial staff dedicated to corpse detonation builds. It has +3 to level of socketed spell gems, some dot multiplier, and a new buff called Unstable Fungi. Unstable Fungi is a buff that gives you 35% chance for any corpse you or your minions detonate to detonate an additional time. Not even death can protect them from the volatile vapors of a rotting carcass. All living organisms will unwillingly fuel the fungi machinery. This is the flavor text of the Mycelium Heart, a new shield that synergizes with other Blight uniques. The shield itself is a tabula rasa for you to craft on it using your bench. It can have as many crafted modifiers as anoints you have equipped. Only 2 clarifications: it's 1 craft per anoint and not per item anointed, meaning that Strangle Gasp Amulet, for example, can give you 4 extra craftal mods. Also, you cannot use metacrafts. Parasite Tenure is an amethyst ring that prohibits you or your minions to apply curses. In return, the ring will take care of that, cursing you and nearby enemies by random curses every 10 seconds. With random meaning that both you and enemies can be cursed by 1 curse, 2 curses, or all of them at once, for a specific amount of time, and here curses limit does not count. It also has built-in reduced effect of curses, which most people will enjoy, and a bit of dexterity always needed in intelligent focused builds. We wanted to give you only 1 problem to solve, in this case, the curses. This ring could be used by builds that take advantage of having or applying multiple curses that won't be seeing themselves using something like Soul Mantle, for example, that is only focused around totems. Finally, not everything has to be related to damage. The Frozen Calamity is a new Cobalt Jewel which freezes enemies that are on full life when damaged by chaos, incredibly useful as an additional defense and especially for mapping. 2 new keystones have been added to the passive tree. Greedy Practices let you develop mobile games faster, and Greedy Practices makes your auras have 50% reduced effect, but their reservation is half. If you want them all, a price must be paid. The Constructionist is a new keystone located between the Marauder and the Templar that makes your totem last forever, in exchange of 50% less totem placement speed. This is intended mostly for bossing, but players may find new ways to abuse it or invest enough to reduce the downside. Leagues without new skills are like bread without butter, like Christmas without a tree, like Disney without politics, or Latin America without inflation. One cannot exist without the other. Also, we think that new leagues should open up opportunities to design new skills around its lore and aesthetics. Mirror Arrow could have been a skill introduced by the Calandra League, for example. A boring skill for a boring league. You get the idea. so let's explore some of them for Blight. Sporewalk is a new active spell gem that you can toggle on and off. When it's on, you leave spores on the ground that explode after a few seconds, dealing chaos damage. Each spore grows over time while standing on top of it, dealing more damage and having more area of effect. You can link it with less duration support to explode them more frequently, or increase duration support for it to grow bigger, dealing massive damage at a lower pace. It's up to you. Mycelium Golem is the missing option between all golems, which grants increased damage over time to allies nearby. It also throws vines that pull enemies together, and gem quality gives you damaging elements deal damage faster. Maybe in the future we should add one with energy shield regeneration, but we have Celo's Oath, so And the last one is called Mutation Nova. It's a spell that grants a buff similar to how Righteous Fire works. When active, every 5 seconds the organism mutates and releases a pulse of physical damage to all nearby enemies based on the amount of energy shield you have lost since its last activation. You can cast the spell preemptively at any time, which resets the timer. Increase and reduce duration affects the activation frequency. If you find new ways to deplete your energy shield, you may become a walking bomb. Diablo 4 and OnlyFans streamers have one thing in common. They manipulate lonely people to burn money for something they won't ever receive, a finished product and a long-term satisfaction. Also, both of them offer a shitty version of something that is free for everyone. So, let's go waiting. After a lot of thoughts and hours upon hours of reading what the community is saying on Reddit, we've decided that the new MTX will be Cassia's Dream Gag is a new MTX that can be applied to the Templar to shut her up.
And the unrighteous were turned to ash.
You can regulate its tightness and change between 2 different colors to better suit your fantasies. Multiverse Tower is a new MTX exclusive for Blight. It allows you to change the look of your towers, but be responsible with such power. Box of Shame is a new hideout decoration which shows everyone passing by how many Weta pets you own. Never before have we seen such clear connection between opportunity and poverty. Are you cringe enough to consider yourself a child? Maybe a risk taker? Someone who double corrupts mirror tier items just to prove a point? Then this MTX is for you. Fungal Balls is a new MTX that you can apply to your belt to hang a pair of balls. Each time you double corrupt a unique item, your balls will grow in size. Given enough time and your balls will scrape the concrete. First, thank you so much for staying for this whole presentation. Also, what are your thoughts about the Blight mechanic as it is now, and which league should I tackle next in this Legacy series? Please leave in the comments below, as any form of interactions helps my channel grow and motivates me enormously. Also, these videos are pure brainstorming and should not be taken as balanced manifestos. I know nothing about game design. Thank you again for your time. Take care. Un abrazo.